everybody. We'd like to welcome Vishwanath Ramarao on our podcast series, or rather the video cast series in the new pandemic world where we're doing everything online rather than doing in our office. Welcome, Vish, to the series of video cast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great. So just so the audience know who Vish is, Vish comes with extremely tech mindset in terms of what he's done in his past. He's actually donned multiple hats, looked at Yahoo, has been with Imperium, which was one of his own firms, which he went on and gave away to Google, then moved on to AOL, was front-ending the entire technology and data sciences for Hike, which is an Indian firm based out of Gurgaon, and then moved on to Google, went back to the US to Mountain View. And finally, we have him in Bangalore, in our own city, at Acko, taking care of the entire tech and product. So really happy to have a Bangalorean back in Bangalore and doing this video cast with you. No offense to the guys from anywhere else, but it's just that probably, it's more the feeling of belongingness, right, in terms of knowing that you're from Bangalore city.
Yeah, I've traveled the world. I'm back home now. So that's the way I think about it. It's good to be back.
Awesome. So, Vish, I think the first question that we'd like to start off with is you joined Acko in Jan 2020. That is right at the start of this year, and you were looking forward to a brilliant year. You said, hey, this is going to be a fantastic 2020, a start with a new role back in my own country, in my place. And then the pandemic hit us in March 2020. So it just gave you very little time with your entire team, on site. So how did it feel? I mean, how did you go about managing the entire piece? Because I think for a C level, it's more important to be where the team is. So what are your views? How did you go about doing the whole piece?
Sure. So I spent probably 2.5 months with the team physically before the pandemic hit, and I had to travel back home stateside to be with my family. And everything changed. People now only do video. But I think the 2.5 month period that I was there was a critical bonding period. I think I got to know people up close and personal. It's a good chunk of time to lose that initial inhibition that you might have when new people are interacting. And then, get to know the systems, process, mindsets, challenges, all of that, at least enough to be able to ask intelligent questions, right? And that's a big part of the role that you play. That end of the day, you're not any smarter than your team. You're just trying to point the team in the right direction. And so I think in that sense, it was very helpful to spend those 8-10 weeks with the team. And then, the collaboration tools that we have in the company are excellent. Most people already were doing a lot of these things even before the pandemic hit for various reasons, and this just accelerated that trend. So people know how to work well together in spite of these limitations. And so I'm just very happy and thankful that the team that I have is one of those teams that is very welcoming of new people, knows how to work together, and doesn't let the physical proximity become a factor. It does have some challenges because your body language is oftentimes missing, and so as a leader, for me, the mental note that I made was just to assume a lot less about people and intentions. I think if I could do that and check myself a few times, maybe video works, and thankfully it's worked so far.
Awesome. Well, I think that's been the flavor of most companies. They've been talking about how technology has really been a boon during this period. Even companies like ourselves who were used to meeting people face to face, we've also adapted to doing this through videos, right? So I think I completely agree with you, but it's really nice that, for a leader who comes into an organization, you've managed to quickly get it on the right track. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. So
all thanks to the team. I mean, you can try so much, but it all comes down to a good welcoming team, and I'm just very happy with my team.
That is amazing. So here's something that kind of brings a question in our head. So I'm sure you joined the InsurTech world to look at how you can modernize technology in a very old domain, insurance. Because I don't know, for most viewers who don't know, this insurance has been there right from the Roman period, in a very different format, of course, and now it's modernized. And when you moved in and then the pandemic hit, is also another way of looking at insurance as a segment, because insurance comes in whenever there's a financial loss or uncertain loss. So how has it really helped scaling of business, from a tech to a business? How has it worked for you guys?
Yeah. So for us, I think, there are a couple things that when we look at the effects of the pandemic on our business, I would say there are a couple of, things that surprisingly that have gone our way. One of them is just people are a lot more, I'd say, attuned to doing things online. They tend to try to look for their needs online, and that's obviously very useful or helpful for a digital provider like ours. And when you're not using your asset, whether it's a car or something else, it tends to be safer for you and safer for the asset. And so that's, for an insurer, that's always a good thing when people are safe and the number of accidents are not as high as maybe usually that we see. But there have also been some downtrends, right? Not to make it look like it's all been great, and it's certainly not. People are suffering, and it's been hard on people, and that shows in human activity. Just the number of people that are online doing things, the number of people looking for new products, willing to purchase, willing to pay for services. There's been a slowdown of that across the board, and I think we're no different in that sense. That when people and their economic capacities are subdued, every sector feels it, and so we have felt the same too. But we see strong signs of recovery. Our partnerships are in great shape. A lot of our partners are recovering pretty quickly as well. So the hope is that this is behind us. We're not quite out of the woods yet, but it feels like we should be able to eventually get back on track.
Sure. Any tech advancements that you guys planned out during this period for your customers when it came to, when they were purchasing insurance or renewing them? Was there anything from tech that was actually used differently?
Yeah, we're in a very regulated industry. So, a lot of things that we tend to want to do for our customers has to go through a regulator that then opines on, what is good for the general population and good for our users. So some of the fancy things that we wanted to do, like we wanted a 13-month policy, give an extra month out. From a product perspective, that seems simple, but many of these products are built with assumptions about what is inside the technology. Some of these parameters have been hard coded and they're built a certain way, and so being an insurance platform that had built this ground up, we had more control. And so in some sense, we could have offered a much more flexible set of options to our user base. Some of these worked out, some of them don't. So, end of the day, I'd say the couple things that we were able to use this time for was reducing technical debt, which we had quite a bit of. So we got a chance to, during some slowdown period, take some of these head on and try to address them. And so that's been a positive. We're moving from a monolithic architecture to a microservices architecture, and that's we got a bit of an accelerant during this time. For our users, like I said, we have a few products that have been, I'd say, more benevolent than usual, and some of them have worked, some of them are not. But we made decent progress. I wouldn't say we've been sitting idle or anything like that just because the business has been a little bit slower. We've managed to attack the technology platform, technical debt, and things like that a little bit more.
Right. I think I've been one of those customers of Acko. In fact, I purchased it right before the pandemic and got my car insurance renewed. And as a customer, I felt very happy when I got this small little pop-up that said that since your car is sitting in your basement, So the insurance gets, that was really actually really sweet because it put a smile on my face. So 30 or 45 days really does not make a difference to customers of a different category, but it definitely gives a delight saying that, oh, people are thinking in that direction, right?
Yeah. No, I think, one of the advantages of starting a company now versus maybe 20 years ago is people's mindsets are different. You recognize the value of your enterprise, in the context of society, not just as a profit-making machine, but in some sense, your role in society. And we certainly take that very seriously to not just be just another insurer, but to really be a more helpful insurance company, to be a technology-driven insurance company that makes life easier for people, that makes some of the harder aspects of understanding insurance policies, all the various constructs and things like that a lot easier, making it more delightful for claims to work and so on. So, in that sense, I would say we're able to put our best foot forward during these times and reflect our highest order thinking in what we do in both the products that we build as well as the way we present those products to our user base. So nothing there that we're doing is undeserving or anything like that. I would say, the people have been waiting for companies like ours that are probably more helpful than just about making money. And it's one opportunity to be part of that helpfulness in society.
Absolutely. I second that completely, Vish. So the other piece that I wanted to check with you, we spoke about partnership. Partnership on the other side would also mean where Amazon's been a continuous partner with you guys. So would you be able to tell us, we understand from a business perspective, but from a tech perspective, that's a line of interest. How
Sure.
working very well because Amazon also comes with great technology. So how are these combining together?
Yeah. So, again, as a digital insurer for us, we look at everything as systems and APIs in some sense. So it's not just what you sell out there, but it's how you sell it. How do you scale it? How do you put it out in front of people in the best way possible? And so the partnership that we have with Amazon is an excellent one. They're great partners for us. It's a deep API integration where they literally power their insurance purchase experience on top of our platform. And we get to learn both about the scale of operations that they have and how should we sort of set up our platform to be able to handle that kind of scale. So it's beneficial to us in that sense, and it's beneficial to Amazon in the sense that they're able to offer to their user base a category of products that are not generally available. So I think from a product perspective, from a tech perspective, from a business perspective, that's it. All aspects are it's one of those win-win-win situations where there's not anything that either side has reason to feel any remorse for. So I think we're very, very happy with that partnership, and the technology platform that powers that is it's allowing us to learn a little bit about how to handle scale.
Awesome. So I'm sure with scale also comes another problem, which is claims. Did you see that going up during this period? Because I know that it's becomes the most important function for an insurance related company. So did you see that going up, and how did you manage that with tech? Because once you came and you did say that you're getting it to a microservices platform, has it already been built out? So would you be able to tell our viewers how that is going?
Yeah. So in terms of the microservices platform, it's a transformational change. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's also pretty typical for companies that are 3 years in. You're past that hurdle of initially trying to get either product market fit or basic functionality out there, and so you can afford to take a much more I'd say, broader perspective on what is the right platform structure for longer term. Whether it's APIs or breaking down the APIs into further units that are much more, usable. So these types of partnership with Amazon, etc., they tend to drive that kind of thing a little bit more, right? You tend to you tend to sort of accelerate some of that thinking. And so we're in the midst of it. We've done a big portion of it, but I wouldn't say we're completely done. It takes a significant amount of time and continued focus for something like this to work. And so we're fully committed to this new architecture that allows us to, much more easily break things up, recombine them, and scale them. And so, we're hoping that on top of these partnerships, we're able to learn a bit about, which of those things are in great shape and which of them still need further work.
Sure. And my other question was about claims, and Vish, if you can throw some light about that.
So claims, the way the trend is, you might have parked your vehicle for a few months or so, but it was not a very long period. India in general, if you look at even data around how people were moving about, vehicular movement, even during the pandemic, there was significant vehicular movement, right? It was not like the shutdown. People still tend to go from point A to point B in their cars, and there is still some chance of accidents and injury and things like that. And so for us, we saw a small dip at one point in time, but overall, both the purchases as well as the claim side were lower. And like I said, it's just a function of overall human activity. But that was I would say a few weeks. I wouldn't even call it a month or more. So that's fully recovered at this point in time. And funnily, we were talking about it when that blip was happening, and we were not seeing as many claims as we normally do. It felt odd. We were like, "Hey, come on, claim, right?" Like as in, let's get back to normal. Let's get back out there and let human life flourish. And I think. So for us, like I said, we are one of those very socially responsible companies. Insurance as a business model itself is a very, I'd say, humane business model. It's not one of those things where profits always need to be very large or anything. If you look at typical insurers, they tend to run, I'd say, very responsible P&L sheets. So, for us, claims is not just a cost function. It's also a way for us to showcase a product strength, a technology platform. So we do want people to be able to, when something goes wrong in their lives, be able to come on our platform and find some help. And so we're back to normal, where everything is sort of where it was, and maybe even a little bit higher. But during the time that it was a little lower, it was a little odd. A few weeks there that it felt like what's happening to humanity, but it's all good.
All right. That's interesting to see that when the claims dipped and then you guys were thinking differently. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a large surface area for a product, right? It's not most people buy insurance and they forget about it sometimes, and they need it only when they need it. So for us, claims is not just an afterthought. It is literally the core product in some sense. And so the engines that we've built for claims management, the workflows there, and sort of our ability to do that well is a big part of who we are. And so for us, not having that aspect exercised by our user base, it did feel a little odd for a few weeks there. But again, it was just a blip, and we're back to where things are a lot more normal now.
Sure. So this question is actually, would help. Your response will help a lot of founders in India, because you are right now taking care of tech, product, data sciences, all three different functions. And having to, as far as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, tech thought process is completely different. When you get into product, you have to really use your mind differently. Data sciences, again, is very futuristic, so you have to plan ahead of time. How do you manage to cope with all three functions, Vish? I find that really intriguing. So if you can help us understand, because most of these guys who come to me say, "Hey, Roopa, get me a CTPO." And CTPO is not that much of an availability in the market, because most technologists don't look at the area of product. So would you be able to help us, talk about that a little from a founder or viewers who are founders or the newer age group of VCs? It'll really be helpful.
Sure. Look, I think, end of the day, whether you're playing a CTO role or a CTPO role or a any of these CXO roles, your effectiveness is directly proportional to your team's ability to take ownership and do the things that they will, that they are good at as well, right? So for me, I cannot be effective in any of these things. Forget about all of them unless I have a team that I trust and that they're good at what they do. Sure. So thankfully for me, that setup is quite strong at Acko. We have a few technologists in the company that have been with the company from the very beginning. And so, there's a lot of knowledge there in terms of how things have been built, how they've evolved, sort of the mistakes that have been made, the things that we've learned on top of those mistakes. And so I rely on that a lot for my effectiveness. And so the hope is that you can bring a little bit of a new thought process somewhere, maybe add to the overall effectiveness on any of these functions. It's never that you are somehow great at all of them in a way where you're better than somebody else. That's never the thing. So it's always additive. It's always additive on the technology front, additive on the product front, additive on the data front. And so in that sense, if you're able to bring your past experience into the mix, share something, you tend to be able to help teams a little bit more. So it comes down to just juggling, and I also think it's a function of size. Eventually, you do require specialization at a particular scale. So, if you're a 2,000 people company, it would be very difficult for a CTPO role to even exist. So, you tend to want to help wherever you can. And so it makes sense to combine some of these roles in the beginning because they're always on a continuum too. Like they're all related problems in some sense. You can't do great product without great technology. You can't do great technology without some good data these days. That's the new oil, as people say. So, having one person at least have a bird's eye view of all of those allows you to much more quickly accelerate what is it that you want to be and where are the problems that you want to solve and what are those interrelationships between these domains that makes for a great company. You're able to much more effectively identify it. But solving them specifically at scale, I do think there's a specialization that eventually comes in, either through multiple VPs of Eng that tend to take on some of these ownership areas or VPs of product. Right. You will eventually have to build the next set of leaders to take on some of these functions and much more effectively own it. And so your function starts to become less about doing any of these things in a very specialized way, but more about connecting the dots between these things in a way where the picture is a little bit more complete.
Right. So I have a feeling that, and I'm going to relate this to you, while you were a founder and you got acquired by Google, and while you were at AOL, you went on to acquire, you were part of the acquisition for another company. So the whole perspective of, probably even your thought process, this is my reading while you're saying this, could also be because you had a founder mentality. So, being closer to a product, you realize how to look at a product. And you've always been a technologist, so that comes, it's on autopilot mode. And you're right, so data becomes the well-oiled machine. So would you be able to tell us how did this entire piece work? Because you've been on both sides of the table, right? So you've been on the side when you got acquired, which is completely different. You're giving away your baby. And then you've been on the other side where actually you've gone ahead and acquired someone else's baby. So would you be able to tell us how the entire journey was?
Sure. So I'll leave the personal aspects that, maybe they're not very useful to your audience. I'll just go with sort of maybe a higher level view of this. See, end of the day, I think whether you're building your own thing or you're part of somebody else's journey and, solving a problem, the goal always is to solve it in the most effective way possible, right? To make an impact, to improve the world, to build something that is useful, to make a problem a little less of a problem. Right. And, oftentimes you reach these junctures where you realize that you either need a lot more capital to solve some of these problems, or you need a very different context to solve them, right? And so when you're sitting as a founder trying to decide whether you want to continue on that journey, or you want to be part of something different, or become part of a bigger entity, you really still have that same mentality that I want this problem solved, and where is the best environment to solve it, right?
Sure.
It makes no sense to waste heartbeats for years together when you could have accelerated the curve of the solutioning a lot faster inside a bigger company. And so for my company Impermium, when it got acquired by Google, that was the thought process, that will we be able to solve this problem and make an impact on it being independent, or will we be able to sort of make a bigger impact being part of Google? And so that was the mentality. And on the reverse, when people look at acquisitions, or at least when teams that I've been on look at acquisitions, it's still the exact same process, just from the other end. You're looking to find technologies and people and teams and products and companies that are in some way have many of the right ingredients to be able to solve a problem at scale, or make a big impact, but are also working in constraints that you might be able to then bring to the table, reduce those constraints, or be able to offer something to mitigate those constraints in order to unlock value. So, it's the same idea that you're really trying to just make a big impact in the world, try to make a problem less of a problem, try to really make the world a better place through offering services and products out there. And you're just trying to find the best path to do so, whether it's organic, as in you invent it yourself and build it yourself, or inorganic. End of the day, you have to be very clear about the value, and you have to be very clear of your situation. And so, that strategic understanding of the situation, the various pieces of the chessboard, if you may, so that you can assess the situation effectively, and then decide what's the best way forward. I think that's the mindset that you want to carry in, both for acquisitions, as well as when you're in a position where you have an offer to be acquired.
That's a very clear thought, is how I would like to put it. Whether you want to solve that problem yourself, or you want to be part of a bigger entity and get it resolved faster. I think it's a very clear thought, Vish. Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure loads of people who are watching this podcast will realize that why acquisitions are such a big deal, right? Because it's merging of two entities, merging of thought processes, problems getting solved. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And I'd like to take a cue from what you just said. You used the word chess move. So I'm just going to grab onto that subject. And since we've known each other for a long time, and I know your son's a chess champ, and you've, so I'm sure you play chess with him as well. So I'd like to understand, does chess really help you in the C-level role that you performed in the past, what you're doing now? And how do you use it?
I don't think it's I don't think it's as direct a connection as maybe it looks like from the outside in. It's just that I learned chess when I was a young kid, and learned it on the fly without books and without any awareness of the strategies or situational pieces that are part of chess, at least at an elite level. So you tend to play because you enjoy it and it's fun, right? Everybody likes a good game, and so that's how you pick it up. Later on in life, I think you associate some of these abstract things about looking at a business, looking at your own strengths and weaknesses, your company's values, strengths, weaknesses, and just situational awareness of the ecosystem. What different entities in the ecosystem are doing, where is the world going, what are sort of end games that you could be part of. Things like that become, let's say, a lot more connected much later in life, and they're very abstract things than maybe a very closed game like chess, which is very very clear on the rules, very clear on what works and what doesn't work. The real world is a lot messier. And there are no clear rules like that. The situations are a lot more murkier. So I'd say at some abstract level, those things do apply, but I don't think it is quite a direct connection like that. But the more you can remember to take a step back and look at the board on in front of you, if you can do that in life and in business and in technology, you just tend to get a little bit more perspective on how different things are interrelated and what you could do to kind of win against your problem. And so that thought process to kind of take a step back, look at it a little bit more holistically, look at the interrelationships of systems and variables, that I think is definitely a very important element of both how you play CXO roles, but also how you play chess. So in that sense, they share that, but I don't think being good at chess makes you a better CXO, or being a good CXO makes you a good chess player. I know for sure that the reverse is where if you're a decent enough CXO, you cannot. I know that I'm not a good chess player, so my son beats me quite often. So I would say the parallels go only to a degree.
Great. So I don't have to learn chess. I'm not good at it. So.
Not at all. You can be good at a lot of other things without being good at chess.
All right, perfect. So I think I would want to dive into the next question. I don't know if you recall, but when we were having tea in Bangalore, we were discussing about how you're close to watching talent emerging from T3 cities, building technology, and how you believe in investing in them because you feel that talent somewhere gets lost, especially in the technology space, and people don't identify these guys. So can you share a little bit about that? How do you go about evaluating this? And yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, see, for end of the day, I think for us and probably true for many other companies, it's very important to have a broad understanding of success. What makes somebody successful? I think the technology industry has made several mistakes of narrowing it down to puzzles, narrowing it down to sort of very few variables, and then recognizing that the true capacity, human capacity, is a lot more multidimensional, right? And so I would say we tend not to look at any of those variables, whether it's gender variables, city, any of those things, and just try to find people that have maybe fire in their belly to prove something, or maybe the hunger to learn something new, and the work ethic to be part of an industry like tech, where things are constantly changing, constantly new things are getting built, and it is it's not one of those things where you have a fixed I'd say skill set. You have an ever evolving skill set, right? And so in tech, at least my personal experience has been the approach, the attitude, and your hunger to stay on top of things, understand things, look at things in sort of fresh ways is just as important as having maybe a strong communication skill set, or maybe a strong, let's say, coding skill set or whatnot. And so I think those things are there in say heaps in every city in India, tier 2, tier 3. Right. We just don't tend to look there. And so for us, I think in some way the pandemic is also allowing people to go back to their hometowns and work from where they are. And we tend to see that they're a little bit happier as well, maybe closer to where their homes are. So just a reinforcement of this idea that we only should care about a few variables and not about either the tier college that you went to, or the city you came from, or your gender, or your station in life. Those things don't matter. What matter really is your ability to, your hunger to do something, and your skill set and learning to pick it up and be able to do them.
Fantastic. So this would be very encouraging for a lot of talent who come from T2, T3, that they will not get discounted by leaders like yourselves when you're doing your own hiring, or even when you're evaluating what the person's good at, right? Because it's more to do with the basics rather than what college is or where they come from. I think that's something that we would like to share on this podcast vocally, that people should follow their instincts and make sure that they know their basics well, is what you've just mentioned. And I think that's a brilliant piece of information that's going out on this series. The other thing that I wanted to, while you were talking about that, that's when this thought came to my mind. How did you even come up with this? Because you've lived so much in the US, you've seen a different culture, and then there's been, of course, you've worked in India as well. So from a culture standpoint, two different ways of operating, even from a tech, evaluations are different. So would you be able to tell us about the culture and then say that how did you come up with this thought process by itself?
Sure. I think both our founders as well as the entire company really stands for inclusivity, and that's I think a global, universal theme. I would say this past decade that we all have these biases and biases that blind us to being more objective and I'd say a lot more fairer in society, and as a result, build a better society. So when we are able to actively suppress those biases or recognize, even forget about suppression, just being able to recognize that you have them and acknowledge that those exist, and you got to do something about it. Ideally, in the way you're set up in the process, in the culture, it encourages people to open their minds, and I think. That's no different here in the United States today, where a lot of people feel marginalized. In gender, for example, in tech has been a pretty big topic for a few years now. Race and equity across all races in technology has also been a pretty big topic. So when we're looking at these types of situations, I think you just have to apply it locally, right? In India, that could map to a very different set of variables. It may be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. That may be a bias that exists already. College bias. There's some degree of research that late people who bloom late may not have gotten necessarily to the top college, but are equally good at contributing to a particular problem, right? And so that's important. Same thing with work streams. You don't always have to come from a computer science background just to work in technology. There are people from humanities. There were people from many different degree streams and work streams that are able to contribute very effectively. So I think the more inclusive your mindset is overall, and the more reflective of that mindset, you can create a culture, create your company's process, encourage the right way of thinking. I think you tend to, create opportunity for yourself, of course, as a company in building this melting pot of talent, but you're also able to really unlock and change people's lives beyond what you would have done if you had a much narrower mindset. So it just comes from that very sort of simple thought that as much as possible, you want to reserve judgment and, try to be as objective as you possibly can in your assessments.
Sure. So as the final question that, before we wrap up the series, I'd like to ask you, for all the talent that is watching out there, and, with the pandemic and with jobs not being there out in the market, for people to come and join your team, or Acko, what will be the culture? What is it that they can expect? If I'm sure this will help them realize how do they get in touch with Acko and yourself.
Yeah. So I think it's a difficult period, right? It's a period of large change in many businesses. It's true of Acko as well. And, many of the established processes are not working the way they were, right? And so it's important at these times to have a personal story to show, don't tell. There is this saying that, you show, you don't tell. So, it's just not about the talk, but it's about the action. And so if you're able to do something, if you're a job seeker, you're able to do something that proves that you really want it and you're building the skill set for it, you just tend to get a lot more attention during these times, even during these times. And that's been true probably before COVID happened and probably true even today. Mm-hmm. So I would, just encourage your audience to stay positive, keep working on what matters to them, find a way to contribute, and learn as much as they possibly can. Opportunities are going to open up. Acko's always looking for talent in the long run, and so our opportunities are going to open up in a big way as well. So there will always be ways to be part of what we are doing and also part of the industry if there is hunger, if there is positivity. And I think those are the ones that are going to help you get to the pandemic as well.
Awesome. So for all those people who don't know Vish, he's extremely humble, non-judgmental person who gets along with most of the people because of his being non-judgmental. That's what I have known him for. And I think extremely calm, even when there's a huge storm that's coming your way. Person who's been extremely calm is Vish. Extremely positive as well and patient at the same time. So I think it'll be lovely for people to work with a leader like yourself, Vish. So I'm just speaking on your behalf.
You flatter me more than I deserve, Roopa. I have my failures. I think end of the day, as a leader, I take my responsibility very seriously. And I think, it's not always about just the chest thumping leadership. It's about empathetic leadership and showing people the right way, helping people. And so, I try my best, but I'm nowhere as good as you paint me to be.
That's humility talking, Vish. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to have a discussion on that one here, but people definitely believe what I'm saying for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on this podcast series. I know you're sitting in a completely different time zone. It's almost the end of your day there. So thank you so much for being on this podcast and sharing your thoughts with us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me over. We have known each other for a long time now. I enjoy being part of the Purple Quarter family. So, hopefully some of what I shared is useful to your audience. And same message, stay positive, you as well. Stay positive, and things will always change for the better.